much money I made. There's also a bit of a twist because I've invited a guy called Tom round who's never invested in his life. He doesn't have a job right now and he's been finding things really a little bit tough. While he thinks he's coming around for a simple how to invest for beginners tutorial, I've got a surprise planned for him. I'm actually going to give him some money to jumpstart his investing journey, as I would really have appreciated that at his age. If you like this idea and you want me to do it with more people, then make sure to smash that like button to let me know. I'm really excited for this one. I can't wait to see his face. He'll be arriving any minute now. So we're here with Tom. How are you?
I'm not too bad, yeah. Very difficult time at the minute. You know, I've been looking for a new career path and a new job.
I know you've spoken a little bit about being interested in investing.
Yeah, I am very interested, but I don't know that much about it actually. I mean, I've been watching a lot of your videos, my friends have been watching a lot of your videos and they've actually started investing, so I'd like to give it a try.
Well, that's good. Well, that's good to know because that's what we're trying to push out, to get young people investing early. So Tom, we've made a video recently where I invested $100 into lots of different investments, and during this video we're going to see how those investments went. Should we dive straight in?
Definitely.
Let's do it. So this is the first investment. This is a high interest savings account and we invested $100 and at the moment that's had a return of 0.04%, and the reason it's lower than when we started is because they lowered the interest rate. So our profit is 4 cents.
4 cents? That doesn't seem like a lot. Why would I invest in that?
So this investment isn't about the interest you're going to gain, because nowadays it's really hard to find a really high interest savings account. The real reason one of these is so valuable is because you can use it as a backup fund, and you should have in there around about 4 to 5 months of your living expenses.
Why would I need that?
Well, the reason is because if you have an emergency in your life, I mean, you might have a flat tire on the car or the engine in the car might blow up, whatever the reason, you've got the cash to hand to be able to sort that problem out immediately without having to go and borrow the money, which is going to cost you a high amount of interest.
So basically, it's not about the money you make, it's about the money you save.
You've got it. Something a lot of people don't know, but 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So by doing this, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
Well, that's where I want to be.
The second investment we made was into gold.
Oh, I love a bit of gold.
Well, we all like a bit of gold, and we invested $100 into this. The return on this was minus 0.98%, which means we lost 98 cents.
So why would I invest in something that loses money?
Because it protects you against inflation.
What's inflation?
Well, think of it this way. This dollar has actually lost 95% of its value since 1913. And that's why your grandma and your grandparents always say they could buy so much more with their money when they were younger.
Well, that makes sense, but how does that link to gold?
Well, that's actually an easy one, because as your dollar loses value, gold generally goes up in value. So by investing your dollar in gold, you're keeping it a lot safer.
Well, how come you lost money?
Well, because the gold market always fluctuates. So gold basically moves in the opposite way to inflation. As inflation goes up, the price of gold goes up.
I never really thought about it like that. Do you just buy blocks of gold?
Well, you can do that, but I prefer to invest into ETFs and ETCs, which means you can buy and sell gold much easier.
So what's an ETF?
An ETF is an exchange traded fund, which means they hold the gold for you. You don't have to physically hold it and put it in a safe or anything like that. They store it all over the world, and there are billions stored up, and you can actually buy and trade it on the stock market.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
So just to finish this section off, gold is a very rare thing. You can't make any more of it. Well, you can, but it's too expensive to make it, so you wouldn't. So it won't lose value the same way that money will. Unless, of course, Elon Musk finds a great big meteor that's full of gold, of course, and he might do that. Investment number 3 was an S&P 500 index fund, and we invested again $100. Our return was 1.84%, which gave us a profit of $1.84.
Well, that's a good profit, but what's an index fund?
Owning a stock is like owning one cow, whereas owning an index fund is like having the whole herd. So imagine if you own just that one cow and it dies, you're out of milk. But if you own a small piece of all the herd, then if one dies, it really doesn't affect you. For example, what we chose is the S&P 500, which is the 500 top companies in the USA, such as Amazon, Apple, and now even Tesla.
So I can invest in all these companies in one go?
Yeah, you certainly can, and the fees are really low because it's passively managed. They don't have experts managing all the different stocks. And pretty low risk because it's diversified over all these different companies.
So I'm not going to lie, Mark, but you're only making a profit of $1. Why should I care?
Well, the thing here is that $1.84 is only over a month and a half. And if you actually invested $100 at 8% growth per year over 45 years, you would have over $500,000 in your account.
That sounds amazing.
And do you know what? That $100 a month can just be by having a few less coffees from Starbucks or doing a side hustle. It's easily found and invested into an index fund every month. Investment number 4 is in a REIT, and that stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And we've invested again $100. Our value has actually dropped by 0.4%, which is a bit of a pain, but we did get a dividend, which is really cool, of 57 cents, which means we are actually in profit by 11 cents.
So what's a REIT?
So imagine you've gone round and you've borrowed lots of money from all your friends and you've got enough now to go buy a property and you rent it out. And of course, because you're a nice guy, you split all that rent with your friends.
So that dividend, is that a share of the rent?
Yeah, that's spot on. And it's from things like offices, hotels, things like that are owned by commercial companies. And because they have to sign such long leases, it's a really secure income.
So this is how I can get into real estate without buying a property?
Yeah, think of it a bit like, I own the front door, you might own a window, your other mates might own half a dozen bricks. So you all own a little bit of it and then get paid the rent in return.
I've always wanted to go into property, so this could be my way in.
Investment number 5 is sort of my bread and butter. It's business, buying and selling. And I actually did some research and found a model engine that was underpriced, which I then sold on eBay. And also the guy gave me a model aeroplane as well, which I sold. So we made a profit of 67.87.
Why is the risk level 4 out of 10?
Well, this relies on your knowledge of the things that you're buying and selling. Because if you can find the right things, you can make money from them.
I'm really into Star Wars.
Well, Star Wars toys are worth quite a lot of money. And if they're in their packets, you could earn a fortune from them.
All right, you piqued my interest. Where would I look for these things?
Well, Facebook Marketplace is great, and also eBay. And I often look for mistyped titles, and that way you can get yourself a bargain. And sometimes people don't photograph the things very well, so they're going to go for a lower price.
I better get myself a bargain then.
And the great thing with this is you can repeat the process over and over again. One guy went from a paperclip to an entire house. Investment number 6 is Samsung individual stock. And we chose this stock by having a dartboard on the wall. And we had 20 randomly selected companies around it, and we landed on Samsung.
So this was a completely random investment?
Yeah, and as you can see from $100, we've actually made a return of 19.4%, which is actually $19.43.
Wow, so that's with a risk level of 6.5?
Yep, so the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Would you say luck was involved in your dart throw?
It was lucky I hit the board, not only blindfolded, I didn't have my glasses on either, so it's a absolute wonder. Of course, luck and timing is always a critical part of stock investing. Of course, you can do it without throwing a dart at the board because you can do fundamental analysis.
What's fundamental analysis?
So that's when you look at the financial statements and balance sheets and also the leader of the company. And this can all be found on Yahoo Finance if you're interested.
So what's the best way to get started?
Well, if you deposit $100 on Webull, they'll give you 4 free stocks at the moment. I'll leave the link below. And for you, Tom, I'm going to leave a link for Trading 212. If you want to pick up a free stock, that's fine if you're in the UK or Europe.
Free stock for nothing? Count me in.
Investment 7 is crypto, and we decided to invest in Bitcoin. We invested $100 as before, and we got a return of plus 98%. So in a month, we've made nearly 100% of our money back.
That's amazing. So are these actual coins?
No, they're not actual coins, but they're digital coins. The great thing with Bitcoin is it's decentralized, so it's not actually controlled by any government. And this puts some people at ease because the banks can't control their money.
So can I spend this Bitcoin?
Yes, and more businesses are actually accepting Bitcoin now, and the more that do, the more the value goes up. And remember, this dollar, it's just losing its value because they're just printing more and more. And that won't happen with Bitcoin because there's a limited supply.
But I heard about Bitcoin, they're making them all the time.
Well, actually, they're just mining them, and they're finding all the little bits that are out there. And once they're all found and they're all mined, that's it, there's no more. And that'll probably happen in the 22nd century.
So that's quite a lot.
20s think they're invincible. I know I certainly did. I think I was a bit, to be honest. But actually, the truth is, in your 20s, you're more vulnerable than ever. If someone makes a financial mistake at this point in their life, it will send shockwaves through their entire future. Each of these mistakes is very different. So it's really, really important that you watch this video until the end. Otherwise, you could fall victim to one of them. So smash that like button. All right, done that? Let's jump straight in. Number one, it's not taking advantage of your free time. Now, in your early 20s, you are incredibly rich in one way. You've got bundles and bundles of time. You can do so many things to turn your spare time into cash. And if all you're doing is wasting your time, then all that potential income is just slipping through your fingers. This is also the ideal time to invest in yourself and build your skills. I used to use my spare time in my 20s sketching model planes, and this has led me to having them manufactured and selling them all around the world. In fact, one of my biggest designs is the biggest selling RC aircraft in the UK. The original design for this was sketched in a classroom while I was being bored by the geography teacher. I remember him well, Mr. Woolard. So developing those skills from an early age has served me very, very well. Number two, trying to keep up with your friends. Everyone has that one friend that always seems to have the nicer car, the nicer house, and sometimes the hotter partner. Let me tell you a secret, all right? The majority of people are faking it anyway. As of 2020, the average American household had a credit card debt of over $5,700. This is astonishing, as it means the friends you're actually trying to keep up with are probably more in debt than you are. Having access to so much easy credit allows people to rewrite reality. At the end of the day, friends that need impressing are not true friends. Real friends are the people that love you no matter what. They stick by you through your troubles and are there for you when you need them. They are the people who couldn't care less what you spend your money on. Number three, over drinking and partying. When you're out drinking, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and spend a lot more money than you usually would. Now, this is most people's kryptonite. It's one of the things that keeps many people broke and, of course, unable then to invest. I'm not saying that going out and enjoying yourself is wrong, as you have to do what makes you happy. The key takeaway from this is everything is great, but in moderation. You may think that saving a few dollars here and there won't make a difference, but your dollar is worth so much more when you're younger. By investing it instead of spending it on something you really didn't want anyway, it's going to be worth dramatically more in 20 years' time. Number four is putting off retirement investing. When you're in your 20s, retirement seems like a lifetime away. Many people put off investing in their retirement until they're about 45 or 50 years of age because of many, many excuses. They've got a mortgage to pay, they've got a college fund to save for, and of course there's holidays. These lost years can cost you very, very dear. So let me explain. If you invested $100 a month for 30 years at 7% annual return, you would have $116,945 set aside in your retirement fund. And this can continue to grow until the point you decide to retire. But if you put off investing in your retirement, let's say 10 years, and you start investing the same amount for a 20-year period, wait for it, you're only going to have $50,000 in your retirement fund. Yes, it can grow, but you're starting from such a low base, just 50K. $50,000 is a huge amount of money just to lose. And the reality is that $50,000 would have only cost you $12,000. So lots of free money. I was very lucky. My mentor advised me to save and invest in a pension from the age of 18. I've always been told that you should put at least, not a minimum of at least 10% of everything you earn, and it's given me the ability to use that money in lots of different investment opportunities, such as business, real estate, and also stocks and shares. Even Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Number five is not having a backup fund. Now, over 60% of millennials wouldn't be able to cover a $1,000 emergency. That's 60% wouldn't have enough money for a minor emergency. Now, I know I bang on about this, and I do bang on about it a lot of the time, about having a backup fund, but that's because it's super important. I learned it the hard way. When I was 19, I purchased a car that I needed a loan to buy. The engine in it lasted me about a month before it blew up. But still no money, and to reach level 3, you need both skills and money. As a millionaire who started off with absolutely nothing, I've been through all of these levels, and if you do too, then you'll certainly be able to make more than $1,000 per day. And don't worry, I'm not going to be suggesting you spend hours watching ads, testing websites, or filling out those useless online surveys. I mean, they only pay a few dollars anyway, so what's the point? Instead, I'm interested in the big bucks, so these are side hustles you can make good money from. Of course, the faster you progress through the levels, the more money you can make. Level 1, no skills, no money. In this level, it's all about using your time as strategically as possible to create the most amount of money. The first side hustle is being a content critic. This one isn't as well known, but it's definitely in high demand. I'm even willing to pay someone to do this for me, so listen up and let me know if this sounds like something you'd be interested in. The job of a content critic is to give unbiased, honest feedback. Honesty is such a rare thing to find. Most negative comments come from haters, and fans rarely like to offer criticism as many people take it the wrong way. The majority of content creators have developed a tough skin and are actively looking for ways in which to improve their content. That's why, if you're a genuine fan of a particular YouTuber, then you could actually be far more valuable than you realise. So if this sounds like something you could be interested in, then leave me a comment below suggesting what content you'd like to see on my channel, and I'll reach out to the people with the best ideas and be their first client. I'm happy to pay a fair amount for a great feedback report from a viewer, and I'm sure many other creators would be open to doing the same. With multiple clients, you'll be able to build up to more than $1,000 in no time. The second side hustle is flipping Instagram theme pages. This is something you can do with just an iPhone and a bit of time. These are pages that are focused on specific subjects. When I first heard that you can make money from flipping these, I was actually quite shocked. Back in my day, I had to actually buy and sell physical products like cars, for example, but now doing this online actually makes complete sense. Just think about it. When was the last time you scrolled on Instagram and didn't see a sponsored post? They're everywhere, aren't they? This just shows brands are putting loads of money into Instagram adverts, which makes the pages more valuable. If I were you, I would start and grow pages in particular niches by posting regular reels. Personally, I'd pick a car theme page, as I used to race cars, so I know the niche has a big demand from advertisers. I've seen some of these pages sell for thousands. A bonus one in this level is using a link in the description to get 16 free stocks worth between $2,000 and $2,000 in return for signing up to Moomoo. They're a great investing platform and it's basically free money. Level 2, some skills, no money. These online side hustles require more upfront work to begin with, but as you develop your skills, you'll be able to charge a lot more than the average person, as you're providing more value, and this of course equals higher pay. The third side hustle is designing thumbnails. I actually ran a competition to find a thumbnail editor for this YouTube channel. I did this on my Instagram and we had hundreds of submissions. You might be thinking, if hundreds of people applied, isn't there too much competition? In all honesty, only 3 designers actually stood out to me in that competition, as they took the time to understand my style, and rather than just creating a pretty graphic, they really considered how they could get people interested in clicking. Creating effective thumbnails is more of a psychological task than a graphic design one. The best thumbnails are often simple to create, but the idea behind them is very clever. Just think, if you can increase a YouTuber's click-through rate by even 1 or 2%, then hiring you means instant profit, and you're justifying your own wage. Out of the 3 candidates that stood out, I hired 2 of them myself, and I recommended the third to one of my friends. If you can master this skill and sell 10 thumbnails in a day for $100 each, then that's $1,000 right there. You could charge less and do more, or even charge more and do less. The choice is yours depending on your skill level. The fourth side hustle is tutoring. Now, before COVID, I probably wouldn't have added this one to the list, as most people wanted in-person tutors, and honestly, This business model isn't great as it's very time intensive, and the amount you can charge is also pretty capped depending on the competition in your local area. However, I really think the world has changed. If you're talented at a particular subject, it may be a great option to teach it online. The key here is to sell the transformation rather than a tutor in itself. I mean, most people don't really go to a personal trainer to improve their technique. They go to become a fitter person. That's why they're always using before and after photos to advertise their services. The same goes for tutoring. You need to sell a specific outcome to a standardized test, such as GCSEs and A-levels in the UK. Facebook is the perfect place to advertise as it's full of mums that want their kids to do better than everyone else's. Trust me, if you find the right Facebook groups, the demand is sky high. The great thing about doing it online is that you can cut out all the travel time, which means you can work with more people and earn more money. You also don't have to just work for people in your local area, as you can teach anyone anywhere in the world. If you're able to sell 10 spots in a group class for $25 each, then that's $250 an hour. Once you achieve this, you can start filling more hours. You may think that people won't want group classes, but if you give them the outcome you promised, it doesn't matter how you deliver it, especially if you put all the students in a Facebook group and offer them support outside of lessons. Of course, if you're selling the outcome of getting into medical school or completing your exams as a doctor, then you can charge way more, as the potential outcome you're selling is worth a lot more money. The fifth side hustle is creating logos. Have you ever looked at a famous logo and thought, that's so simple, I could do that? I know I certainly have, and I'm ancient. So I'm sure you younger guys watching this will be able to master this one easily. We recently held a competition on my Instagram account where we paid the winner $1,000 for creating a logo for our brand, Strike It Big, which is run by my son and I. We weren't looking for crazy design skills, it was all about the idea. Even if the logo was hand drawn, we were prepared to pay the money if it was a good idea. With this side hustle, no one cares in a millionaire when you're younger is far better. Take it from someone who's experienced both. And no, I wasn't born into a rich family, quite the opposite. The odds were stacked against me. I was a ginger, working class kid without a penny to his name. So if I can build wealth in a relatively short amount of time, then you can too. This isn't going to be one of those generic videos about investing in index funds and getting rich when you're old and grey. I'm going to be taking you through the actual moments in my life where I uncovered the truth behind building wealth from nothing. From the moment you step foot into school, they try to control your ambition. And one memory that stands out to me was sitting in a lecture theatre just like this one. The teacher asked us to write down our dream job, our dream car and our dream house. I was really excited, so I wrote down business owner, Ferrari and mansion. She then said life is going to be tough, so I'm going to break the hard news to you now. You're probably going to have none of those things, so be realistic and lower your expectations. I thought to myself, of course I will. I'll have all of those things, and I've carried that attitude for the whole of my life. If you allow the system to crush your hopes and dreams, you'll never be able to create wealth from nothing. Look, this isn't some fluffy mindset BS. If you can't even believe something is possible, then how on earth are you going to do the work required to become wealthy? Most people give in to the pressure of being realistic and end up joining the crowd, and then they discourage the next generation from following their hopes and dreams. But you can decide to break the cycle, just like me in that lecture theatre. So if you want to do this, then you firstly need to be very careful about who you listen to. I'm not just referring to those fake gurus on social media. I'm also talking about the people in your life who give their unsolicited advice. While your friends and parents may have good intentions, if they haven't built a large sum of wealth, why would you listen to them when it comes to making money? Secondly, you need to learn to think from multiple angles when trying to solve problems. Most people will come across an obstacle that they've been told is impossible for them to conquer and give up at the first sign of trouble. The more you let these kinds of challenges beat you, the harder it is to break out of the herd, as you're cementing to yourself that you aren't good enough. Whenever I come across a challenge, I think of at least 10 different solutions and then decide on the best way forward. If one doesn't work, Then I just try the next one and so on until I'm successful. Thirdly, you need to step outside your comfort zone. Look, if Harry Potter stayed in the cupboard under the stairs, then he would never have defeated Voldemort. Sorry for the spoilers, but it's so true. Putting yourself in challenging situations helps you grow and improve more than anything else I've ever experienced. When I first joined the workforce as a carpenter's apprentice, I was so excited. It was the job I really wanted to do. But unfortunately, the manager took a bit of a dislike to me and he bullied me practically every day, giving me all the rubbish jobs. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it anymore. I came home that night, sat on my couch, and I looked around the room and thought to myself, what have I got to lose? I've got no child or wife to look after. I'm 20 years old. I've got to make this decision. Sure, I'm scared of quitting a job. Of course you're scared. But I knew that was the best thing for me. So I quit the very next day. If you're young and have few responsibilities, it's a clear choice to take more risk to increase your income. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you should go and invest all your money in crypto. The risks should be calculated. Looking back, I didn't realise at the time, but the biggest risk in my life would have been staying at that dead-end job. For me, increasing my income meant starting my own business. However, if this isn't for you, you could always start a side hustle or upgrade your job every couple of years. Studies have actually found that you're more likely to build wealth faster by job hopping rather than staying loyal to one company. However, if your goal is to build wealth as fast as possible and you decide to pick the employee route, then you need to choose a career that isn't dependent on how many hours you work, but on the results you achieve. After lots of hard work and many sleepless nights, I managed to open my model shop. It was a huge success. I was reinvesting all of my money in the business to help it grow, that I didn't have time to think about investing. One day, I decided to take on a work experience lad for 2 weeks. And on the first day, all he kept banging on about was stocks and shares. And I thought, what does a 14-year-old know about stocks and shares? Anyway, he mentioned this one particular stock that he said was going to go to the moon. He said, I've got £1,000 and I'm going to pile it all in because I'm so confident. And I thought, well, if he's that confident, I think I'll getting a job and a mortgage, which leads to working every hour of the day just to earn enough money to retire at 67 and finally die. Let's be real for a second. Do you think that's how I make $67,257 per week? There is clearly something else going on. And no, I'm not talking about getting a high paid job or starting a side hustle. To achieve this, you need a way of making money that doesn't rely on you working day in, day out. It's called passive income. And here are 7 ideas I strongly suggest you consider, along with my ratings of each. Idea 1. Invest in stocks. There's a bit more to this than just invest in the stock market and you'll make passive income. I mean, I can see why people might think this, because let's say you buy a share in a company and it goes up in value. Technically, you've generated some money without doing anything. But in order to actually get your cash out, you have to sell your stock. Some would consider this passive income, but instead, I just think of it as a bonus and not something to rely on. I consider passive income as nothing less than actual money flowing into your bank account every month without the need to sell the asset that's making you the money. That's why the only form of stock market investing I consider to be real passive income is dividend stocks. These are chunks of companies you can buy. Think Starbucks, Pepsi and McDonald's, and in return for owning them, you get a share of the profits paid directly into your pocket, as well as benefiting from the stock going up in value as a bit of a bonus. They're one of the easiest ways to make money on a consistent basis with absolutely no work. Well, that's as long as you pick the right ones to invest in. I strongly suggest you listen to this next part carefully so you avoid making any crucial mistakes. To help you sort the good from the bad, dividend stocks are ranked in a kind of social hierarchy. At the top you have dividend kings. These are stocks that have not only paid a dividend but actually increased it for 50 years in a row. Under that you have the dividend aristocrats. These are the stocks that have increased their dividends for 25 years. That's where the official definition stops, but I like to think of the stocks under this as dividend working class. Sure, some of them will eventually become aristocrats and kings. However, it's very hard to tell which ones will make it. I'd be very cautious with these, as a lot of people get drawn in by companies offering extremely high dividends. I can understand why, but remember, as much as it's about the amount of money you're being paid, it's also essential that it's sustainable long term. So you can easily compare these 7 ideas. I'm going to rate them in 3 different categories. Firstly, how much time does dividend investing take? I'll rate this a 1 out of 5, as all you have to do is download an investing app, deposit some money and buy a few dividend stocks. Look, this isn't financial advice, but some apps I'd recommend are Moo for the USA and Lightyear for the UK and Europe. Apps like these often give out free stocks for joining, so if I find any, then I'll pop them down in the description below. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'll give this a 5 out of 5. As it's so quick to do, the trade-off is that you need a lot of money invested to make a significant income. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This also gets a 5 out of 5. Let's do the maths. As dividends are calculated on a yearly basis and are paid out at the end of each quarter, let's first work out how much money you need per year, which is pretty simple. There are 52 weeks in a year, so let's multiply that by 100, which gives us $5,200. Now let's say we invest in one of my favourite companies, Starbucks, who currently pay an annual dividend of 2.4%. In order to make $5,200 per year or $100 per week, you would need to invest a grand total of, wait for it, $216,666. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great for people that already have money, but what if I'm just starting out? In that case, it's a much better idea to use your time instead of your money to make passive income, which is what the next idea is all about. Idea 2, automate a side hustle. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a job and an automated side hustle. When I was younger, I had a friend called Jamie who had a small dog training business. He was fantastic at what he did. I remember him seeing tame the craziest of dogs. One day when we were sitting in the park, I asked him how much money he made, and I was surprised to find out he was only just getting by. It didn't really make sense to me how such a skilled person who obviously had a lot of value to give was unable to make the money he deserved. If we put aside the fact that he probably wasn't charging enough, we get to the real issue, which was the business model. He only had a limited amount of hours he could sell and dogs he could train. Therefore, he could only earn so much before his potential was capped, as at the time there was no way to automate and scale it. But now we have the internet, these little side hustles can become much more passive and make a lot more money. So how do you go from having a skill like Jamie to having an automated side hustle? Well, here's the steps I'd take, and I'm pretty sure I could turn a small side hustle like Jamie's into $1 million business nowadays. Firstly, you have to identify what you're really good at. Ideally, you should have some kind of unfair advantage. But this is where the majority of people get caught in the same trap as Jamie, as they start to sell every minute of their time for a small amount of money. Instead, you need to focus every waking hour on building a digital asset of some kind. For Jamie, this could have been a blog where he talked about training dogs, a manual for owners to train their own pets, or a course that teaches other people how to start a dog training side hustle. Secondly, when you've decided what kind of digital asset you want to build, you have to put it on the internet so that your future customers can find it. The best solution I've found for this is a tool called Hostinger, which is an all-in-one platform. I'm talking hosting, website builder, logo maker and free domain name with annual plans. I personally choose this as the drag and drop website builder makes it so easy, as I don't have any coding skills. Then it's just a case of effectively advertising your digital product on social media. I'd highly recommend making viral TikToks about your product, as you can reach so many people without too much time and effort. So, how much time does automating a side hustle take? Well, if you're doing it on your own, I'd give it a 5 out of 5, as it does take a while to build the digital product, and then you have the added headache of making a website. However, if you do decide to use something like Hostinger, then I'll give this a 3 out of 5, as you don't need to worry about having any technical or design skills for the website, as you can just use the built-in AI website builder to make the website for you, or alternatively, you could use the designer-made templates, which is great news for a boomer like me. But for the people that are a bit more knowledgeable, you can further grow your website by choosing the WordPress option. Now let's talk about how much money you need. I'd give this a 1 out of 5, as this passive income idea is way more about spending your time than your money. It depends what digital product you want to build, but if it's just a course of some kind, you can do all of that on your laptop using a program like Canva. When it comes to hosting it on the internet, if you get hosting as 24-month plan, then it comes out at less than $3 a month. I've actually been using Hostinger for a while now, so I thought, as I was mentioning it so much in the video, why not reach out to them and see if I could get a discount. They actually did get back to me, so if you use the code Mark Tilbury, you'll get an additional 10% off. I'll leave a link in the description below. Finally, the part that everyone wants to know. How easy is it to make $100 a week? I'd give this a 1 out of 5. Because once you're up and running, let's say you price your digital product at $25, all you have to do is make 4 sales a week and you've made $100. So within a couple of weeks, you can make all your money back and then start making profit. This is easy enough if you're posting TikTok videos every day. You might even get a really viral one and end up making way more sales than you initially expected. And that brings me perfectly onto idea 3. Make online content. For decades, millions upon millions of dollars have been hoarded by the traditional media. I'm talking about the radio stations and television networks. The public had no idea how much money was in advertising until YouTube opened their doors for the public to create their own content. Then the curtain was well and truly lifted. The traditional media hate it, and that's why at every opportunity they try and discredit social media. The people leveraging online content are dipping their hands into the previously extremely guarded money pot and rightfully taking their fair share. It still shocks me how some people don't understand how content creators make money. I mean, the concept of advertising is hundreds of years old, and online ads are far more trackable than just putting a random advert on the TV and hoping it increases a business's sales. Here's the best piece of advice I've received about social media. It's not if you do it, it's how well you do it. So how can we use it to make money? Well, it's like I previously mentioned, you can start a YouTube channel, and once you reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, you can start getting paid from the adverts on your videos. Whenever I say this to people, they come back with something like, well, the people that succeed are just lucky. Maybe this was the case a couple of years ago, but now if your content's good and designed for the algorithm, you will be successful. The harsh truth is, too many people think their content is good when it's actually just terrible, and no one wants to tell them this. This is because they only ask family and friends who sugarcoat the truth to protect their feelings. If you want an honest judgment, you need to ask people who don't care about offending you. Care more about people who don't care about you. It's best to pick whatever you feel the most comfortable with, be that writing, taking photos, speaking into a microphone, or recording a full-blown video. As long as you can capture people's attention, then you're onto a winner. It's also worth mentioning that picking a niche is important. In the early days of the internet, you could get away with talking about anything and everything, but now there is so much competition that you need to specialize in something in particular. Think about it like your favorite TV show. Every time you tune in, you kind of know what to expect. Similar characters, locations, and storylines. So you want to make sure your viewers know what kind of content you produce and put it out on a regular basis. This also makes it a lot easier for you to attract sponsorship opportunities. I like to think of every video I put on this channel as a little asset that will make me money for years to come. It also helps that it's extremely fun to make content. So how much time does content creation take? I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 rating, as it's one of the most time-consuming things in the world. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but making content is a long, hard process. I mean, this video has probably taken us more than 5 days to produce. However, the upsides are worth it in my opinion. Just think, the harder that something is to do, the less competition you actually have. Now, how much money do you need? This is a 1 out of 5, as you really don't need much to start. I see way too many people buying the latest equipment or going on crazy long courses to learn how to create content. This is a terrible idea. You just need to become an avid consumer of whatever you want to create. Take the good parts from all of those different things and then mix them with your own ideas. There's a great book about this called Still Like an Artist. Most importantly, how easy is it to make $100 a week? Well, this has to be a 1 out of 5 too. Within a couple of months of starting this YouTube channel, it was able to make more than $100 per day, and you can do the same. No wonder the traditional media wanted to hoard all this money for themselves. The opportunity is insane. Idea 4, start private investing. Now, I want you to imagine you're an investor on Shark Tank An entrepreneur walks in with an incredible business you think you can help with, and they're looking for some money to expand. You have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor of this business. Are you going to take the risk? How about if you're having a conversation with a family member and they share their plan for a world-dominating business and they just need a small amount of money to start? If you answered yes, then private investing could be for you. Your first step is deciding which kind of private investor you are. There are two main types, sharks and angels. Some stay angels and some morph into sharks, but it'll help you to know the difference. Angels often invest in businesses run by friends and family. They often don't have lots of money nor an interest in taking control of the business. They're generally seen as nicer and more forgiving, hence their name. On the other hand, sharks may invest small amounts of money but have deeper pockets. They may also seek a controlling interest at the start, as they're confident their expertise can make the business more profitable and therefore grow their investment. I'm personally more inclined towards the shark end of the spectrum, as I like to have as much control over my investments as possible. But whichever private investment strategy you pick, you can also combine it with content creation. Believe it or not, the actor Ryan Reynolds is a great example of this. He's one of the smartest people on the planet right now, and I'm not exaggerating. He's extremely good at playing the everyday guy, but under the mask, he's a business-savvy venture capitalist with many multi-million dollar exits under his belt, giving him a net worth of over $350 million. He finds interesting companies, offers to buy a small percentage as an angel investor, uses his social media to drive up the value, and then when the company sells, he gets a huge check for tens of millions of dollars, and this is almost all passive income. It's genius. Now, of course, Ryan is a worldwide star, but you can replicate this strategy on a smaller scale and use it to make a lot of passive income. I mean, even if you could replicate 1% of his success, that would give you a net worth of $3.5 million. So how much time does private investing take? I'm going to give this 2.5 out of 5, as it takes a while to find a business that you really believe is worth investing in. Don't just jump into anything. Take your time and carefully consider if you can see that business being successful in the future. You also have to ask the entrepreneur how dividends will be paid and their ultimate exit strategy, as that's how you're going to get the majority of your money. The actual investing part doesn't take long, as it's just a case of handing over the money and being assigned your percentage of the business. Now, how much money do you need? I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, as it really depends on the business that you're investing in. I've personally invested anywhere between $1,000 and $100,000. Of course, the earlier you get in, the less you're going to have to invest, but also the more risk you're taking. So you have to decide how much risk you're willing to take. If you do this, I'd also recommend making more than one investment, as I've often found that one good investment can make up for 9 bad ones. But importantly, how easy is it to make $100 a week? I'm going to rate this a 2 out of 5, as it really depends on your negotiation skill and how much you invest. I've invested $5,000 in a business and helped them to upgrade their equipment, as well as helping them grow their client base. I started making an easy $100 per week in dividends. The more value you can offer, the more you'll get in return, as you aren't taking money out of the entrepreneur's pocket, but instead helping to grow the pot of money for everyone. Idea 5, become an affiliate marketer. I remember when recently a big bank had a promotion. My son's girlfriend sent a sign-up link to all of her friends, letting them know if they downloaded the app, they could get a free $10. She was shocked by the results. Every few hours, a new friend had signed up and thanked her for the free cash. Before she knew it, 30 of her friends had signed up using the link, and she'd hit the limit. But she wasn't just doing this out of the kindness of her heart, although she is a kind girl. She also got paid $10 for everyone that signed up, meaning that day she made $300 just sitting in the bed texting a few people. Just imagine if there wasn't a limit, she could have made far more. This is essentially affiliate marketing, but real affiliate marketing doesn't have a limit, so you can make as much as you want. It's considered to be one of the simplest yet most profitable ways to make money online, as it doesn't require you to have any extra skills or previous experience. All that's typically needed as an affiliate is a passion for your niche and strong persuasive skills. Think about all the products you love and maybe even use on a daily basis. The chances are that other people will also like those products, and you are the perfect person to sell it to them. Most big companies have an affiliate scheme, so all you have to do is go onto their website and do a bit of digging. If you can't find anything, then it's worth reaching out to them directly and asking if you can become an affiliate. There are also websites like impact.com where you can see a lot of different affiliate schemes that you can easily sign up for. Now you have to make some noise. You can do this by writing blogs, using social media, or posting reviews. You may have already seen this done on TikTok with those videos about Amazon products you need to buy. Every time someone buys through your link, you as the affiliate marketer receive a kickback and make a profit. But bear in mind, if you're doing reviews, you should actually purchase the product and test it. Using it over a period of time and reporting your findings will make sure your content is useful and genuine. One thing to keep in mind before you start affiliate marketing is to consider how you can provide value to your audience that exceeds what you get in return. So how much time does affiliate marketing take? I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be hard to begin with, so it's important to have realistic expectations. While it is a great way to make money online, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It requires patience and a willingness to learn. It's totally understandable to feel discouraged if you don't see results right away, but keep in mind that success in this field takes time. You need to build trust with your audience and create valuable content for them. Now, how much money do you need? This gets a 1 out of 5 as you don't need any money whatsoever. That's assuming you already have a phone or a laptop you can use to access the internet and make your content. But how easy is it to make $100 a week? I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. If we take the example of my son's girlfriend, she was kind of doing affiliate marketing without even knowing, and she managed to make $300 in one day. Of course, this wasn't very passive as she was texting people. However, once you have your content up and running, it will do most of the heavy lifting for you. It's been reported that affiliate marketers earn an average of $66,029 per year passively, with earnings ranging from $35,000 up to $124,000. Idea 6. Create a digital tool. My best friend decided to do this, and now he's a multi-millionaire who spends more time on vacation with his wife than he does at home. He noticed a gap in the market for a digital tool that helped large membership organizations keep track of all their customers' data. At first, he decided to sell his software as a one-time purchase. However, he always had to search for a new customer. When he made the switch to a subscription-based model, he was able to make a very predictable amount of passive income every month. Well, I say passive income, of course he still had to offer support to his customers, but eventually he hired people to do this for him and was completely hands-off. He later went on to sell his business for multiple millions. Before you start thinking you have to be some kind of nerd to create a digital tool, hear me out. The most important thing to do is to identify a problem that needs solving. Often you find people who have the ability to code aren't that creative and need a lot of direction. So if you can't code, then you can be the ideas person, the business brain behind the talent. You then need to pick the customers your software is going to serve. There are two main categories, business or consumers. Serving other businesses is often seen as the least risky and you can make more money per customer. When you've got this, you'll really be able to see how people respond to your solution. You've got to make sure you aren't too attached to your ideas, as you may find it doesn't actually fix the problem you intended. Therefore, it's very important to be able to adapt your digital tool after receiving criticism. Even if this isn't something you think you can start right now, it's worth just noting down problems you see businesses are facing, just in case you stumble upon a solution no one has thought of before. So how much time does creating a digital tool take? I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. Not only does the process of coming up with the idea take a long time, so does the testing and the building of the tool. So if you decide to go down this route, I don't want you to be under any illusions. Completely wrong. What these people actually mean is that side hustles are too competitive and require a ton of money to get started. That's a valid concern. Making money requires a lot of hard work. I don't think I really mention this enough in my videos. It took me years of building different side hustles to become a millionaire. So if you want a quick and easy formula to success, then you won't find it here, or anywhere else for that matter, because it doesn't exist. However, I can give you a simple 5-step plan that you can apply to any side hustle you choose. Step 1. get good enough at something. Starting a side hustle is like playing a video game. You first need to increase your character's power by assimilating knowledge and developing valuable skills. Unlike Sims, your real-life avatar doesn't come with a ready-made six-pack. This is going to require some dedication. A valuable skill is anything you can learn that a large market is willing to pay you for in the future. Notice I said you just have to become good enough. That's because I don't think you should be wasting years of your life trying to become an expert before making any money. Look, I'm going to get straight to the point. Too many people go to university. Yes, knowledge is power, but unless you want a job in a traditional institution like becoming a lawyer or a doctor, there's little need to pay for traditional education. I'm a big believer in learning a skill whilst making money. I don't know why more people don't do this. My friend was the same when she became a counsellor. She felt like she had to become more and more qualified before she could charge for her services, even though she was already amazing at what she did. Now she's actively getting paid. However, just think how many people she could have helped and the money she would have earned if she'd have got over her mental block sooner. The same goes for you. There are people out there that need you now, not in 3 years' time. So it's time for you to decide what skill you want to learn. Remember, you need to make sure your skill has a wide enough appeal. I mean, if I decided to develop the skill of reciting the 7 Harry Potter books off by heart, that skill would be pretty useless when it comes to making money. Most people don't like to admit it, but they're extremely time rich and they could spend it learning a new skill, but instead they decide to chill. Now, that's okay if you don't want anything more from life, but the one thing I can't stand is people that complain about their situation and they don't do anything to change it. The truth is, society wants a docile population that goes to work, follows orders and collects their paycheck. That's why they continually pump out TV shows and films with blatant political messages, all designed to brainwash you. I mean, it's called programming for a reason. So a handful of examples of useful skills you can spend your free time learning are video creation, coding, negotiation, graphic design, writing, or even practical trades like carpentry, electrics and plumbing. The list goes on and on. There are so many side hustle ideas out there that allow you to be paid handsomely for leveling up your avatar. I mean, if you want to learn coding, then start building websites for friends. How about physical trades? Just help out a handyman on the weekend. And for video editing, reach out to work for an influencer. Step 2, offer a standout service. A few years ago, my son had become good enough at filming videos and editing them. He'd managed to teach himself these skills while posting to his YouTube channel, but he wasn't making much money. That's when he did something pretty clever. He decided to offer a standout service for clients. If you offer a normal service, for example, I'll film and edit your videos for $100 each, then you'll be lost in the crowd of competition. You'll be one of the many options for your customers. It doesn't matter if they're looking for a video editor, a web coder, graphic designer, or a salesman, they'll be comparing all of their options based on one thing, the price. This means that you'll always have to worry about competition, and ultimately, it's a race to the bottom, as there's always someone willing to work for less than you. That young lad who still lives at home editing videos is always going to be able to undercut you, as $10 to him is worth so much more than it is to you. I mean, he'd probably be one of the richest kids in the playground. The issue is being seen as a commodity. In other words, there are lots of different options and you're comparable to all of them. The solution to this is offering a standout service so that your customers don't see you as one of the many options, but instead the only option. This gives you the ability to charge far higher prices and build a much more lucrative side hustle. A standout service should look something like this. I'll create an action plan for your social media strategy, direct a bespoke promotional video, help you with your on-camera delivery, and use my experience in your sector to gain new customers and fans that will rave about your services. Let's break this down into 3 parts that you can replicate to make your own standout offer. The first one is niche. Although your skills only have to be good enough, your client should still look to you as an expert in their particular sector. This applies if you're looking to become a social media manager, Facebook ads expert, drop shipper, consultant, and so many more. People are much more likely to pay for someone that's positioned themselves as a specialist within a niche, rather than a jack of all trades. Now, the person that does everything might actually be better than you. However, they're not perceived in that way, and the way people see you is what matters. Before jumping into one of these, it's very important to evaluate what niche has the highest earning potential, and secondly, what you enjoy the most. In an ideal world, it'll be the same answer. However, it doesn't always work that way. Money is obviously very important, but you aren't going to get anywhere if you hate what you do. So it might be worth taking a perceived cut in income for more enjoyment, because in the long run, your motivation should make up for that loss of money. The second part of a standout service is financial incentive. In order to charge more for your side hustle, you need to make more money for your clients. Think about what skills you have or are planning to learn and how you can use them to make other people wealthier. It's so important to sell this financial incentive rather than the actual product, such as the video, website, copywriting, and so on. No one really cares about that. They only care about what that product will do for them. The third part of a standout service is skill stacking. This is essentially taking all the valuable skills you've assimilated in level 1 and slotting them together like a jigsaw puzzle. In my example, this is of course the social media skills I'm using to create their action plan, production skills to create the video itself, and directing skills to make sure their on-camera delivery hits the mark. Step 3, productize your service. Once you productize your service, you can sell it to multiple people. This will allow you to make a lot more money without drastically increasing your expenses. Productized services enable you to expand your side hustle and serve more customers without dedicating an excessive amount of hands-on work to each project. The model is repeatable and should only require modification. In other words, you shouldn't have to make any massive changes when adapting it to different clients or projects. To make a productized service, you'll need to outline precisely what your customer will get and at what price. You'll then be able to sell this product many times. The customer is still receiving a service now with the appealing predictability of an off-the-shelf product. There are endless possibilities when it comes to productized services, as they're only limited by the creativity of the service providers. Cutting grass so he could provide for me and my mum and my 3 sisters. He'd stash away any extra money he made in a shoebox, as well as a bank account that paid little to no interest, hoping that one day he could quit his job working in the factory. When my uncle invested some of his money in the stock market, my dad said it was an extremely risky move. Unfortunately, what my dad didn't realize is that he was also playing a risky game. Can you see where this story's going? Every year my father's money was losing value due to inflation. This is just what happens over time. As more money is printed, the money in circulation becomes less valuable. This meant he was never able to quit his job in the factory. The thought of my money being eaten away by inflation scared me so much that I've made sure to invest throughout my life. As a result, not only have I beaten inflation, but my investments actually now grow by around $17,000 a week on their own, which over my lifetime has made me millions. I'm no financial advisor, but I am someone that's been there and done it. That's why I'm making this video. It's exactly what I wish I had when I was younger. How can I make money investing in stocks? To make money, we first need to beat the inflation issue. In the last 60 years, this averages out to a rate of 3.8% per year. So if your money isn't growing by more than this on its own, then you're getting poorer by the second. In a perfect world, you would have a savings account that provides an average return of 8 to 10% every year, so that you can both beat inflation and earn some profit. Unfortunately, such savings accounts don't exist. However, you can achieve returns like this by investing in the stock market. A stock is a small part of a company, and when you buy it, you become a shareholder. And when you're a shareholder, there are 2 ways you can make money. Firstly, if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, you can sell it for more than you paid. Secondly, you can receive dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means that you can receive money without ever selling your stock. The magic really starts to happen when you own a bunch of stocks that grow at an average of 10% per year, because the interest applied becomes larger and larger. This is called compound interest, and I have to admit, a guilty pleasure of mine is messing around with online compound interest calculators. Let's do one now. If you were able to invest $250 per month at an 8% annual return, in 42 years, you'd be a millionaire. And if you continue to do this for another 10 years, you would actually have over 2 million in your account. Of course, if you wanted to invest even more, then that would just speed up the process. This is all based on historical average data and it isn't guaranteed, but it's certainly been my experience. So as you can see, the real secret ingredient to this millionaire formula is time, which brings me on to when should I start investing? The short answer to this is as soon as possible. The younger you start, the better, as you're giving your investments more time to grow and compound. This also means you can take more risk, as your investments have time to recover if a stock market crash happens. And it will happen. It always happens. But life isn't as easy as this, as there are often things in the way preventing you from investing. So here's how I would structure things. First, you need to make sure you've paid off all high interest debt like credit cards. Just think about it. There's no point trying to make 10% in the stock market if you're paying 15% to a credit card company. Secondly, build up an emergency fund. This should be enough to cover 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. This way, you're not forced to sell your stocks in the event of an emergency, which can really ruin your progress. Once you've done both of these things, you're ready to start investing. If you're younger than 18, then it would be a great idea to ask a parent to open up a custodial account, which allows them to invest for you. This will give you such an advantage in the future. Your next question is probably something along the lines of, how much should I invest? When you ask an investor, they'll probably say as much as possible. However, I have a different opinion. I made most of my money through starting different businesses and only used the stock market to grow my wealth over time. I've also had a pretty fun life, from flying full-size aeroplanes and racing cars to competing for my country and traveling the world. If I'd invested all of that money into the stock market, then I'd have missed out on so much. So my answer would be to invest whatever you feel comfortable with. But if you want a more solid answer, then the 70-20-10 rule is a pretty good guide. It states that you should split your money by these percentages: 70% on living expenses, 20% on investments, and 10% on the fun stuff. Research shows that people who invest at this level are much better equipped to ride the ups and downs of life and also get ahead of everyone else. That's all well and good, but how do I buy a stock? There are various different apps out there that allow you to invest in stocks. I'll leave some links below. The key is to open the correct type of account. You'll often hear people throwing around the terms Roth IRA in the USA and Stocks and Shares ISA in the UK, TFSA in Canada and Supers in Australia. If you don't have one of these accounts, then you're missing out, as they allow you to avoid paying taxes on your investments, but they do have limits because they're so powerful. A great thing about these investing apps is they actually give you the ability to buy fractional shares. So rather than buying a share of Apple for $190, you can invest as little as $1. I wish I had this option when I was younger, as it would have allowed me to get some early investing experience without having to take any big risks. One of my favourite investing platforms is Trading 212, as they do both of these things. Since I was planning to talk about their app anyway, I reached out to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are also offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. One of the really cool things about Trading 212 is they let you practice investing with fake money, so you can get familiar with real data from the markets without risking any money. So if you're a little uncomfortable with investing or just want to try some strategies before putting your own money on the line, this is a great way to get started. Another great feature is called pies, where you can see how other investors have allocated their money into different stocks. If you wanted to invest $100 into that pie, then it would just be split amongst the various allocations that pie creator has chosen. If you live in the UK or Europe, it's worth trying out Trading 212 because signing up is completely free and there are no commissions. Of course, don't forget to use the code Tilbury and you'll receive a free share worth up to £100. Or alternatively, click the link in the description to sign up and see exactly how to access the free share. Now the obvious next question is, how do I pick the best stocks? There are two main ways to attempt to predict the stock market. These are called technical and fundamental analysis. A good way to think about this is like a scale. Usually, short-term day traders are purely focused on the technical aspects. This includes looking at charts and patterns. They believe they can predict how the stock will change in price by judging the highs and the lows on the graphs. As a long-term investor, my strategy is about keeping it simple. Lots of people talk about using margin and options, but that's really not something I worry about. I'm a lot more focused on the fundamentals of a company. This includes the financials, the leadership, and the brand recognition, as I believe this is where the true information lies to indicate the long-term success of a stock. When I invest in a stock, I don't have an intention of selling it for at least 2 to 5 years. However, like I mentioned, it's a scale, so I do look at the occasional chart in order to find the best time to buy. This approach has helped me find some really good investments over the years, rather than just dipping in and out trying to make a profit every day. But with the majority of my investments, I don't actually do any of this. That's because I allocate most of my money to index funds. This is definitely the best strategy for most people. So, what's an index fund? It's a way for the average person to make more money than the professionals with very little effort. I'm a big football fan, and if you've ever followed any sports, you'll be familiar with a league table like this. The better your team performs, the higher up they'll be on the list. On the other hand, if they do really badly, they might be removed from the league entirely. This is almost exactly the same as an index. All you have to do is switch out the teams for companies. Let's take the S&P 500 for example. This is a list of around 500 of the largest public companies in the USA, the big dogs being Amazon, Google, Apple and Tesla. Just like the league table, if a company does poorly, then they run the risk of being removed from the list. With this league table or index of companies, you could go and buy stocks in some of them individually. However, if something bad happens to those companies that you've picked, then you can wave goodbye to your money. The idea of an index fund is to be a little bit sneaky, as it allows you to invest in every single company on the list with just one click. Even if a few companies do terribly, then it's balanced out by all the companies doing extremely well. The average annual return of the S&P 500 over the last 10 years has been 13.6%, although this is slightly higher than the average over time. No one has ever lost any money if they've bought and held an S&P 500 index fund for more than 20 years. The truth is that the average actively managed fund returned 2% less per year than the market in general. This means that the professionals on average are doing worse than index funds, and even if they end up losing you money, they still charge you high fees, no matter what. The reason that index funds can charge really low fees is because they're passively managed, which means they look after themselves and don't need an expert to keep adjusting them, meaning the fees can be as low as 0.02% per year. When I tell people about index funds, it often blows their minds. However, when they go onto an investing app, they get confused at the different options and ask, what's the best index fund to invest in? Well, as I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have had a lot of success with 3 different types of index funds. Number 1 tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the one we briefly mentioned before. The historical return of 8 to 10% has allowed me to generate a fortune over the years. This is due to the power of compound interest. The S&P 500 tracks 11 different industries/sectors, and no sector is more than 30% of the index. However, it is worth pointing out that it's a bit tech heavy these days, with 5 tech stocks dominating 23% of the entire fund. It's up to you if you see this as a positive or a negative. I personally don't mind, as I believe in the future of technology. There are so many different index funds that track the S&P 500, so here are some of my favourites. The best I found in the USA are the VFIAX Index Fund or the VU ETF. The best in the UK would probably be the VUSA ETF. The only real difference between an index fund and an ETF is that the ETF can be purchased or sold at any time throughout the day, just like a stock. Index funds can only be purchased in full. So for example, if the price is $500, you must pay $500. An ETF, on the other hand, can be purchased in fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a full share, and instead you can invest whatever amount you like. This is great if you're just starting out or want to dollar cost average in. Personally, I've set up a direct debit every month so the money leaves my bank account without me even noticing. Really and truly, there isn't a huge difference between an index fund and an ETF. Just consider which one is best for you, take the plunge. Number 2 is a total stock market index. The total stock market index has returned investors an average of 13% each year over the last 10 years, which isn't bad at all. It's the definition of diversification. You can't really get any more skin in the game for a lower cost. If you want to invest for a long period of time,